Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Metro Outer Development Assessment Panel on Tuesday, the 18th of March. My name is Karen Hyde. I will be the acting presiding member today. I declare the meeting open at 9:30. I acknowledge that we are hosting this meeting on the traditional lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and we acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respects to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders 2024 under the Planning and Development Assessment Panels Regulations 2011. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of those regulations, and members are reminded to announce their name and title prior to speaking. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. I'll introduce the rest of the panel. As I've said, my name is Karen Hyde. I shall be acting presiding member today. To my left in the room, I have Ms. Agatha Cabinet, who's our specialist member, and on screen we welcome Councillor Rod Henderson and Councillor Charlie Zanino, who are our DAP members, local government DAP members from the City of Swan. Item 2 on our agenda, apologies, Councillor Jennifer Catalano, local government DAP member from the City of Swan, and Mr. Jean Coltaz, presiding member. Item 3, members on leave of absence, we have none. Item 4, noting of minutes of previous meetings are available on the DAP website. Moving ahead now to the next part of our agenda, and we have part B, which is the City of Swan item, and we are joined by officers Mr. Darcy Gibson and Mr. Phil Russell from the City of Swan, and we have applicants in the room, Mr. Ryan Munyard from Row Group and Mr. Rory Feely from East Court. Could I please seek from panel members first declarations of due consideration that you have duly considered all the documentation contained within Part B of the agenda and Part B related information with a show of hands, please. Thank you very much. Everyone has given their due consideration. I'll then seek any disclosures of interest. I've not received any disclosures of interest. Perhaps I could check with the elected members. Was this particular item considered at council?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. No. Thank you. So no need to declare any interest from the perspective of being elected members. Has any other panel member got other declarations of interest? No? Okay. No declarations. We shall move ahead then. And today we are considering Lot 22 Talbot Road, Hazelmere, which is light industry zoning for workshop and ancillary office. We have one presentation today, and in accordance with the DAP standing orders, clause 4.8.2, presentations are limited to 3 minutes. There's been no extension granted today to presentations, so the presenters are encouraged to focus on the main aspects, to verbally present within that time frame. After that, I will invite panel members to ask questions of yourself, Mr. Bunyard, and also Mr. Feely. I think you're available for questions as well. After that, we'll refer to council officers. So I'll invite Mr. Ryan Munyard to make his presentation.
Thank you, Acting Presiding Member. Good morning, panel members and city staff. My name is Ryan Munyard and I'm from Row Group as the applicant for this item. I'm appearing today with Rory Feely, the landowner representative, who won't be deputising but is available to answer any questions from the panel. Our project team has reviewed the city's RAR and we're supportive of its recommendation for approval with its proposed conditions. In a nutshell, the proposal involves about a 1,600 square metre workshop with ancillary office, washdown bay and hardstand storage areas at the rear of the site. The activity essentially entails the importation of buses from overseas. They're brought to the site for the sort of final checks and cleaning. All paperwork's in order. and then they're either distributed to off-site dealer locations, or in some instances, there's wholesale sales occurring. The other component of the activity also involves after-sales servicing of the buses, which averages about 1 per week, as most of the sales occur to regional customers, and those regional buses don't typically return to site for servicing. From a built form perspective, the proposal meets and actually exceeds all minimum setback and landscaping requirements of the city's industrial standards policy, and the materiality of the building also meets the parameters of this policy. The proposal has also gone through 2 rounds of design review panel consideration, and has resulted in all those matters being addressed and secured by relevant conditions where appropriate. The proposal also complies with the restricted use conditions of the local planning scheme, which essentially defers back to the land use permissibilities of the general industrial zone, provided you deal with parameters around wastewater, stormwater management, and the like. In this instance, the site will actually connect to a private sewerage network, and there's a stormwater retention basin on site, and the sort of technical reporting to support that was provided up front with our application. From parking perspective, 43 car bays are proposed, which is 13 less than the deemed to comply industrial rate. This is sufficient, however, given the nature of the use. It's low staff numbers, sort of standard operating hours of 7 a.m. to 4 p.m, and infrequent visitation to the site. So we say that applying the raw gross leasable parking rate is not appropriate in this instance, given we've got large areas that will be used for storage and manoeuvring of buses, and won't actually be used by staff or generate any demand for parking. So ultimately, the proposal sits comfortably within the planning framework, and we request the panel approve the proposal as per the city's recommendation and its conditions. Thank you for your time, and we're both available to answer any questions from the panel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Munyard. In terms of questions, I'll refer to our DAP members on screen. Councillor Henderson, did you have any questions of the presenter?
Yes, I do. Thank you. A number of questions. In regard to part 9 of the recommendation, there's a question about submitting a landscape design, and then we go down to part E of that, and then it sort of says consideration of the incorporation of marri trees, and then when we get down to and it also says that on part D that the trees at maturity shouldn't negatively impact adjoining properties. I'm just wondering, considering the layout of the block and the lot, where could a marri tree, being a significant size when it's fully mature, be put?
Thank you. Through the chair, we envisage the landscaping at the rear, or perhaps surrounding the rear stormwater retention basin, could accommodate those tree species. And then by having it located in that manner, there won't be any canopy overhang onto adjoining property. So we're comfortable it would satisfy that requirement.
So marris prefer well-drained sandy soil, and putting them in a sump is probably the only place that I could see it could go. Would that be an effective place to plant a marri tree, in your opinion, or you're not aware of the issues around that?
Thank you. Through the chair, my pedigree perhaps isn't as strong as the panel specialist member here this morning regarding landscaping. We're comfortable that certainly how the conditions been structured and worded, and when you look at the surplus of landscaping provided on the site, there's adequate rooms for the landscaping specialist to accommodate those marri trees as part of satisfying that condition of approval. I'd like to say from the city's perspective, it also has the security of being able to check and assess that conditions being met so that the ultimate outcome is provided on site.
Chairman, I might look at doing an amendment in that regard because it doesn't seem to me as though it's going to work. The other question I have is in regard to low carbon cement, low carbon dioxide cement in its procuring process. Does anyone know whether that results in an inferior product or a product that won't have longevity in life or strength?
Are you able to respond to that question?
Thank you. Through the chair, I don't have any comments or specialist advice around that component, but looking at the structure of the condition, certainly the sustainability measures were considered as part of the DRP process, and a sustainability statement was prepared by the project team to support those sort of measures. That's something that may be looked into as part of the detailed design process, and that's probably the appropriate stage to look at the specifics and the specifications around can low carbon concrete work in this scenario.
Thank you for that answer. And Councillor Henderson, we can of course refer to the city officers shortly for confirmation of how they would interpret the wording of that condition. Did you have any other questions of the presenter?
No, I think they've been answered at this stage or in part. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zanino, did you have any questions of the presenter?
No, Madam Chair, I do have questions for the city planning officers, but no questions for the presenter.
Very good, thank you. Ms Cabinet, did you have questions of the presenter?
Not at this stage, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of questions, just your note due to the naming of particular zones. You're now regarded as light industry. Are you comfortable with that?
We are, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and just by way of additional information, I think there's the ownership of other adjoining sites. Could you advise at this point, if you're willing, what other plans there are for the adjoining sites, just so that we can get a clearer view of the context for this application?
Please.
We've got 4 lots on Talbot Road. We are nearing construction on lot 141, which is the adjoining lot to the east of lot 22, and will shortly be lodging development applications for buildings on lot 21 and lot 800, which are respectively the western and eastern lots with the estate, with the intention to build it out as an industrial estate.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much for that. Any other questions of the presenter? Otherwise, we'll refer to the officers at this point. All right, let's move ahead. Let's welcome Darcy Gibson and Phil Russell from the City of Swan. Did the city officers wish to make any comments about the application or the conversation so far, or are you happy just to take questions from panel members?
We are happy just to take questions from members.
Very good, thank you. I'll go through questions in the same order then. Councillor Henderson, did you have questions of the officers?
Thank you. Yes. In regard to 9D and E, it's of concern to me that placement of marri trees in particular on this site is problematic, and the other place I could see they could be put is in the drainage sump. Has that been considered by staff when considering adding that point E?
If I could clarify, that point E only asks for the consideration of these trees to be incorporated. It is the preference of the city that they be considered. However, upon lodgement of a landscaping plan prior to the building permit stage, should it be determined that the site is not suitable for marri trees, will take appropriate action at that stage.
Okay, and the other question I have is in regard to the low carbon dioxide cement or concrete for the building. Is there any trade-off or any long-term strength or stability or other issues in regard to using that kind of cement in or concrete in buildings, and excuse me, considering it's going to be relatively heavy equipment in there, is that a potential problem?
That is perhaps a matter to be best addressed at the building permit stage in terms of load-bearing capacity of certain cement types. All that is to be considered as part of condition 19, whereby a sustainability measures are going to be submitted to the city.
Chair, look, I would have thought that at this stage, if they're going to be put in as conditions for consideration, they should have been considered already. And I find it rather strange. So I'll perhaps seek some comment during debate.
Yes, certainly. Perhaps just a quick follow-up from me, just for clarification from city officers. Condition 19, that second sentence, which starts with measures such as, would that second sentence be perhaps more appropriate as an advice note, which just draws attention to certain things for consideration rather than part of a condition?
Through the chair, I don't believe it makes any difference one way or the other whatsoever.
And why is that, Mr. Russell?
Well, if an advice note is to simply provide some guidance as to what might be required in terms of sustainability measures, then whether it's sitting as advice, for example, incorporating these measures in the condition, or whether it's in an advice note, it's tantamount to the same thing.
So, for clarification, you're saying that because this has the wording such as, which is advisory, you're comfortable that if the proponent came forward at the point of applying for a building permit with none of those measures mentioned in the condition, that would not be an issue necessarily, as long as there was adequate suitable sustainability measures to be undertaken?
Yes. What condition 19 is, for the purposes of meeting the state planning policy design of the built environment, is to indicate what measures in sustainable construction and sustainable energy use is the development proposing to incorporate into their building permit. And when it says prior to the submission of an application for a building permit, it is naturally and logically encouraging or requiring the applicant to give some thought prior to forming the plans for construction that goes into a building permit, what types of measures of sustainability they might incorporate into the design. Mm-hmm. Now, as we know with design review, typically it goes in 3 phases. It goes conceptual before someone starts to design the project in detail. They outline the concept matters of trying to address the fundamentals, principles of SPP7, design of the built environment. They get feedback from a panel. They then design and take that feedback and incorporate it into what we would call the planning approval drawings, which are again a next level of detail, as we know. Planning approval drawings are never building permit drawings, which are far more detailed, as we know. And often it's the case that typically the SPP would say a conceptual design review meeting and working up at the first stage, incorporation of feedback and consideration of feedback, the preparation of planning drawings, and then subsequently the further incorporation of particular advice, in this instance in relation to building measures, prior to the building permit, i.e. at the point in which they're incorporating that. The condition is orthodox and proper, and it's consistently applied in this manner in this local authority in our reports to this JDAP. Now, having reiterated my point, it means not a jot to me whether the second sentence is an advice note, Madam Chair, or whether it's left as a condition. It's a difference that makes no difference.
All right, thank you, Mr. Russell, for that clarification. Hopefully that helps Councillor Henderson in his deliberations. Any other questions, Councillor Henderson?
No.
Councillor Zanino, did you have questions of the officers?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. My question is with regards to public art. Every application that has come forward has always had a component of public art. I note that this development or proposed development has a value of $2.5 million. But unless I've missed it or I can't see it, there's no condition within the 19 conditions for a public art component. Is that been an oversight, or is it done purposely, or could I have an explanation, please?
Yes, so the public art contribution threshold that the city would apply that condition to is where the projected cost of the development is $2.52 million. And the estimated cost listed on the application form in this instance was $2.5 million, as the projected cost did not meet the threshold to impose the public art requirement. It was not imposed as a condition of this approval.
Did you have any other questions, Councillor Zanino?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Cabinet, did you have any questions of the officers?
No, thank you.
Okay, I have a few, please. Now, condition 7 talks about prior to a building permit being issued. Could I just seek clarification, the use of that terminology as opposed to prior to lodgement for a building application? Why the difference on that particular one, and are you comfortable with the wording of condition 7, or would it be preferable to have prior to lodgement of a building permit?
Madam Chair, again, I don't think it makes a great deal of difference. Whether you say before someone submits a building permit, you've done something, we can't prohibit someone from submitting a building permit. So properly, these conditions with these terms, as you would understand, are marker points in time. When a certain thing happens, if the requirement for the submission of the plan has not occurred, then the condition has failed to be met. That's the action point which the condition must be addressed. So if someone has lodged a building permit, you can't stop them from lodging a building permit, that's fine. We should be saying, well, you should have. Prior to the issue of a building permit, the benefit of that is, as we would know, that the relatively newly formed, or it's not so new anymore, Building Act very clearly renders that act and the issue of a building permit subservient to compliance with other legislation, in this instance being the Planning Act, the planning scheme, and an approval issued pursuant to the planning scheme. So it gives very clear direction to a building officer that in the exercise of their discretion on the issue of a building permit under the Building Act, they can see that if something hasn't been done, then they may not lawfully issue the building permit. So properly, the term is issue of a building permit rather than application. In the past, before we had such arrangements under the Building Act, prior to the lodgement of the building permit would have been acceptable. More properly now, it's prior to the issue of the building permit.
All right, thank you for that. That makes it quite clear. Could I ask a question around condition 8, please, which refers to stormwater drainage? Prior to approval from the City of Swan and the Environmental Protection Authority. Now, is that from the City of Swan on advice from the Environmental Protection Authority, or are we talking about a separate approval from the Environmental Protection Authority, which perhaps should not be encapsulated in the condition in that way?
It does describe a separate approval that perhaps should not be encapsulated in the condition as you identified. Shouldn't.
Should it be on advice from the EPA or just to the satisfaction of the city, full stop?
To the satisfaction of the city, full stop.
Okay, thank you for that. And then I just have a couple of others, which is just potentially a couple of little typographical matters. Condition 1, the last sentence, the plans approved as part of this application. I think that might be form part of the development approval as opposed to from.
Yep.
Just a quick one.
You have correctly identified that. Yes, that should be form part.
Thank you. And condition 18 has a little bit of repetition in it. No signage component is approved as part, I think it should read, of this application. We've got as part of this approved of. So how would you like condition 18 to read?
The condition should read, no signage component is approved as part of this application.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. Do any other members have further questions? Are we happy to move ahead with the item? Happy to move ahead with the item. Thank you to the officers for responding to our questions. I would now like to seek a mover. We have a responsible authority report which recommends that we approve the application subject to a number of conditions. Do I have a mover, please, for that as the primary motion? Thank you, Councillor Zanino. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Zanino, as mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say a few words. I think that the application for the proposed development fits well within this locality and this particular location. I think that the report is fairly extensive, and I think that basically with the minor changes to the conditions, I'm happy with what is presented and happy to move the approval.
Thank you very much, Councillor Zanino. As seconder, Councillor Henderson, did you wish to speak to the primary motion?
Yes, thank you. The detail as outlined, Councillor Zanino is accepted. I'm concerned about some of the conditions, which we'll look at dealing with separately following this, I guess. I do want to incorporate, but perhaps separately. The thought around some of the landscaping hasn't been thoroughly considered, I don't believe. And that I think has got to be addressed in some adjustments to the recommendation. I too found it difficult reading the recommendations in that you have picked up on some of those items that didn't really sit right with me either. But overall, we need these kinds of developments for a growing city, and it's a good development for the Haslemere area.
Thank you. As we only have the opportunity to speak once on each on this matter, apart from Councillor Zanino, did you wish to consider an amending motion while you still have the floor?
Thank you. I'd like to change the recommendation 9 to remove point E And if you like, I'll get a seconder first, and then I can give you my reasoning.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. My reasoning is that in the first part of point 9, it says that it has to be submitted for approval to the satisfaction of the city and must include the following. By saying it must include, and then it says in part E, consideration of the incorporation, it makes no sense. So I think that it could be considered if it were possible for it to work. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. So you got to have some sense in dealing with it rather than being in a condition as it's written. I agree with you in the other parts in terms of part 19. I think should be advice note. My opinion is that we should withdraw part 19. But did you want to deal with that separately?
Yeah, let's deal with that one separately. So I'll just speak to the first one, which is to remove part E of condition 9 as seconder to that motion. I think the condition is worded appropriately with part A, which talks to those matters to be considered as part of the landscape and different proposed trees, shrubs, planters, pit sizes, planting densities, etc. Covers off the opportunity to consider all the various varieties and species appropriate to the conditions of the site. I don't believe as a panel we should be necessarily encouraging one form of vegetation over another. I prefer to leave that to the design development process. So I'm comfortable to remove the reference to marry trees. Did any other speaker wish to speak to that particular amending motion? Ms. Kavanagh would like to speak.
Thank you, presiding member. Yes, look, I would actually I would agree with the removal of the condition 9, and how I could justify that from my perspective and my current role as a landscape architect. I would agree that this is probably not the right species that should be planted around a drainage basin. So yes, I would like to support that.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Did you wish to close or go straight to a vote, Councillor Henderson?
Straight to vote on the amendment.
Thank you. On amending motion 1 then, to remove E from condition 9, those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Councillor Henderson, did you wish to propose a further amending motion? I think you foreshadowed condition 19.
Yes, I do believe that condition 19 can be an advice note. So
do you mean the whole of the condition or just the last sentence?
Well, I actually think the whole condition, because but I'll defer to debate on that. But in the first instance, I'll move that condition 19 become an advice note.
Do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah,
Councillor Zanino is seconding. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Henderson?
I don't think we need any more discussion. It was dealt with earlier in earlier discussions. So from my perspective, it can simply be moved off for future consideration and advice.
Okay, Councillor Zanino, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that this could go either way. I mean, I'm happy to leave it as it is, or I mean, in fact, it could come off and be an advice note. So, yeah, I think that it would have the same effect if it was an advice note as it does being a condition. So I'm happy to support it.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak to the motion? I'm happy to say a few words. My preference would be to have the second sentence moved as an advice note, but to retain the first sentence. So in that respect, I wouldn't be supporting this particular amending motion, but could foreshadow an alternate. Ms. Cabinet, would you like to speak?
I would agree actually with you, thank you. I think the first sentence should be made as a condition as well. And yes, the second sentence starting with measures such as could be considered as a recommendation.
Did you wish to speak again or go to the vote, Councillor Henderson?
No, other than to say if this is lost, we have an alternate that someone else can move another amendment on the last part if necessary. So
Okay.
happy to go to that.
Thank you. Let's take the vote. Those in favour of amending motion 2 to delete the whole of condition 19? Those in favour?
Yep.
That's 2. And those against? That's 2. As acting presiding member, I have the casting vote. I will take that vote against the motion. So the motion is lost 3-2. Councillor Henderson, the floor is still with you. Did you wish to say anything further? Any further amending motions?
In regards to, perhaps someone else wants to move a motion on the 19, but in regard to the adjustments brought out earlier on item 8, 1 and 18, did you want those to be dealt with on block in terms of what we discussed
Yes,
earlier?
I'm happy for that. Would you like to move those as an amending motion?
Happy to move as was previously discussed.
Thank you, and I'm happy to second that, just so that the panel is clear. What that amending motion does is change the wording in condition 1 from to form, and condition 18, the wording I believe now becomes no signage component is approved as part of this application. So that's amending motion 3, moved by Councillor Henderson and seconded by me. Did any speakers wish to speak further on this?
I think 8, there was an amendment as well, wasn't there?
Well, I put that to the city officers, but I was
yes, you're
yes,
correct.
they wanted
That's
to
fine. Thank you.
delete. Sorry, that's right, Councillor Henderson, you are
Yeah.
correct. It needs to stop after the City of Swan. There needs to be a full stop at the end of City of Swan. So we have 3 parts to this amending motion to do with condition 1, condition 18 and condition 8, which are all points of clarification. Did any other speakers wish to speak on this motion?
No, I'm happy to support.
Let's put the amending motion to the vote then. Those in favour of that amending motion 3? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to speak on this motion? I'm happy to speak to the motion. I shall give some thought to this. I find the development to be consistent with the scheme and the light industrial zone. The uses are compatible with those on the adjacent sites and the uses proposed also. There was no objection from the referral agencies and there was general support from the design review panel. We so far made some minor amendments to conditions which I'm comfortable with. The appropriate technical investigations have been done and thoroughly assessed, covering waste, traffic, parking, water management. There are further conditions through the ongoing development for matters such as landscape. I will move an amending motion though on condition 19, and that is to move that second sentence referring to measures for the sustainability to advice note status. Do I have a seconder, please, for that amending motion 4?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Zanino. Sorry, I didn't look up quickly enough to see everybody. I don't think I need to speak on it. I think it's an encouragement. We've heard from Mr. Russell that it matters neither way. I think we leave the matter open for that particular point of design and architectural development, but I'm comfortable to require the applicant, as per the first sentence, to provide suitable sustainability measures. Councillor Zanino, did you wish to say anything?
No, I concur with your comments and happy to support.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this one? Let's vote on this amending motion. Those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. I have nothing further to say about the application. Mr. Cabinet, did you wish to speak on the substantial motion?
Yes, thank you, presiding member. The proposal is consistent with the planning framework, including the objectives of the general industrial zone and the local planning scheme number 17, and the broader strategic planning direction for that enterprise area. The proposed development demonstrates a well-considered design that aligns with the expectations for industrial areas, incorporating appropriate site planning, landscaping, and vehicle circulation. The inclusion of a sustainability statement, as outlined in condition 19, is particularly important as it ensures the consideration of cost-effective initiatives such as natural ventilation, low carbon concrete, energy efficient fittings, and end-of-trip facilities. These measures support broader environmental and sustainability goals and align with the city's sustainable environment strategy. And on this basis, I am supportive of the approval for this development, subject to the listed conditions in the responsible authority report. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've all spoken once. Councillor Zanino, as mover, would you like the right of reply to close debate?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that the whole application has been adequately covered, and I think that it just makes sense with the approved amendments, and I don't think there's anything else to add, so I urge everyone to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. That draws that matter to a close. And just continuing with our agenda, we have no Form 2 applications, no Section 31 SAT reconsiderations, Part C of our agenda, other business. Just noting that there are other SAT applications as Swan in the City of Gosnells at the moment. And with that, I would like to draw the meeting to a close. I thank everybody for their attendance and contribution today, and wish you well for the rest of the day. Meeting is closed at 10:14.
Thank you.
Thank you.